Hey guys, it's Molly. Today on Frosted, I'm gonna be making a coffee crunch cake. It pairs a light sponge cake with a rich coffee frosting and some very cool coffee candy on top. This is a very simple cake to make. I've got some cake flour in here, and I'm gonna add some sugar, some baking powder, and some salt. Give this a nice whisk, make sure everything is incorporated. Next we have our wet ingredients. I'm gonna start with some water. Don't really have to worry about everything mixing together right now. I've got some oil, some vanilla, and I've got our egg yolks. And you'll see what I'm gonna be doing with our egg whites in just a second. Give this a nice mixing till it's all incorporated here. The volume from this cake comes from whipping the egg whites until they're stiff peaks and folding them in. That gives a lot of air in our batter, which is gonna create a really nice rise. We are going to whip our egg whites. Once you get to this point where it's really nice and foamy, you can start to sprinkle your sugar in, just a little bit at a time. You wanna give the sugar a chance to incorporate itself. And once all your sugar is in here, pick it up to high gear. What you're looking for here is nice, glossy, stiff peaks. So when you pull it up like this, if there's no droopage down here, you just want it to stick right up. So this is exactly what we want right here. Start with just a little bit of your whipped egg whites. Don't worry about folding this in, just incorporate this. Now we can do this in twos. Let's do half at a time. This folding technique is just pulling from the bottom and lifting over to the top. We're really hoping not to lose any volume here, so even with a few streaks, we're gonna add the rest of it. Fold the rest of this in. So we don't want to touch this more than we need to. And we're using a tube pan here. Try and get a tube pan that has feet because you cool these cakes upside down. And otherwise you can put a bottleneck on here and turn it upside down on the bottom. You don't need to grease this pan because this batter needs something to hold on to so that it rises as much as possible. So we don't want it slipping down the sides of the pan from butter or oil. It goes right into the pan as is. Just smooth out the top. Pop any little air bubbles that you see. Don't fuss with it too much and get this right into the oven. Bake it until it's golden, very high, and spring back to the touch. Now we're gonna make our coffee frosting. It's just whipped cream with some very strongly brewed coffee. I brewed a really nice espresso here. Make sure that your coffee is very cold because you don't want it to melt your whipped cream. So start off with some cream in a blender, and we're gonna whip this to stiff peaks. Once your cream is quite viscous, you can start to sprinkle in your sugar. We're using super fine sugar here because we really want to make sure that all this sugar dissolves. Okay, you can stop that and pour in your coffee here, and then just mix that until it incorporates. So here's our coffee whipped cream, and you want to make sure that it's really stiff because it has to hold all of the coffee candy that we're going to make next. So throw this in the fridge while we make our candy. You start with some sugar, some more strongly brewed coffee, and some corn syrup. Give this a mix, and using a candy thermometer, wait until this gets to 300 degrees. Once you mix everything together, don't touch it again. Let it rise to temperature on its own, and meanwhile get the rest of your stuff ready because the next step happens very fast. We have reached 300 degrees here, and very quickly we're going to sift some baking soda, and we're gonna mix this till it's just incorporated, and then pour this down. What you don't want to do is spread it once it's on the pan. So whatever organic shape it takes is the organic shape you will get. Let this cool for about 30 minutes and then we're going to smash it. Our coffee crunch candy is nice and firm, and now we get to have a little fun. Break some up with your hands, depending on the kind of size that you want, but you want a little bit of everything here. And you can see that it's nice and light and spongy and crunchy. It's an interesting texture, but it's very fun. This looks great, and we will get back to this later. Look at this beautiful cake. It is so high. Here's our coffee whipped cream, and we're just gonna smother it with it. This is a very rustic looking cake, so don't think about this too much. All we want to do is cover it. And once you get the whole thing covered, you can kind of play around with some texture in your frosting. If you notice, I put some parchment underneath this cake right here because I had it directly on the cake stand, but I didn't want to dirty it, so after we frost it, we'll pull this off and you'll be left with a nice clean edge. Squiggles or scoops, however you feel like decorating this guy. Don't forget that we're going to cover this in candy, so this is really just a vehicle for that, right? Now it's just time to decorate, which is always the most fun, and really you can do this any way you like. It's kind of a crazy cake, but it's fun, it's unique. Anything you've ever seen or made before, I can guarantee it. It's got a light, airy, lofty cake with a rich, creamy coffee cream and a crunchy coffee candy topping. It's unique, it's exciting, it's different, and it's definitely worth trying.